All right, well, good afternoon, and I want to thank you for taking the time to join us today in this particular workshop. I've entitled it Gap Searching and the Exhaustive Lit Review. Now, this is part one. My name is, excuse me, Meredith Ader, and I'm the head of public services here at Regent University Library. The way that today's workshop is going to operate is I'm going to provide about 30 to 45 minutes of instruction, and that will leave us with plenty of time for question and answers. Again, this workshop is being recorded, and the recording will be made available to you probably within a day or two, both in your email, but then also I'm going to upload it into a research guide that we have in the library specifically for library workshops. All right, without any further ado, we're going to jump in. Again, the title of this workshop is The ABCDs of Gap Searching and the Exhaustive Lit Review. And a little bit of warning, it is exhaustive, and it's exhausting in a lot of ways. We're going to have a lot of information, and we're going to try to go about it in a way that is systematic. But again, with so much information, there is no way that we could get through it in 1 hour. So we are going to break it into two parts. And again, today is part one. Part two will be on February the 9th, same time, 12 to 1 o'clock. And a recording will be available for that as well. All right, sorry, I've got a lot of chat going on here. Let me just make sure there's nothing I need to address real quick. Okay, I think we're all right. All righty. So Charles Spurgeon, in his book, All of Grace, stated, "Begin as you mean to go on, and go on as you began, and let the Lord be all in all to you." So we are going to start this session in a way that we mean to go on, and that is fully relying on the Lord's presence and his mercy as we jump into this really important work of research. So if you would pray with me. Lord, we do thank you for just the exceptional opportunity that education provides. We thank you for all the little steps that are required along the way. Pray that you would grow in us integrity and intentionality and help us to do a good work. We pray these things in Jesus' name. All righty. I'm going to go ahead and share a document with everyone. Well, this is tiny. I'm trying to figure out how to make this a little bigger. There we go. All right. ABCDs. We are going to jump in, and I'm trying everything I can think of in order to keep this organized because we are going to be entering a lot of information. So first things first. I really can't see this. I'm sorry. Hang on 1 second. I've got to make this bigger. There we go. A. What I'm asking you is to acknowledge that you must plan for research to happen. What we're talking about with this is that you're getting ready to jump into some pretty heavy-duty research, and it takes energy and time and intentionality. And Now is a really good time just to make sure that you've got all of your loose ends tied up. Questions to consider. Yes, I'm sorry. All the chats keep popping up. If we can hold off on questions until the end, that would be really helpful. We got a lot of material to go through, but yes, recording will be available to you. All right. So looking at your calendar, determine what on there needs to be tightened up. Do you need to make sure that you have a babysitter? Do you need to make sure that you have due dates listed on your calendar? Do you need to maybe consider your PTO time? Is it something that might be helpful at certain stages in this process of getting your thesis or your dissertation completed? What I want you to also to consider is, gracious, how we can help you. One of the most difficult things about this process may be finding a space. If you don't have, for instance, in your home, a space where you can spread your information out, where you know that you can leave it, and yeah, I can make it larger. There you go. Where you can leave it and not have to worry about it being rearranged by possibly a toddler or someone that may use the space as well. The library does offer spaces. So if you are local to the Hampton Roads area, I want to encourage you to consider the spaces that we do provide. As doctoral level students, if you're at that stage, availability is even greater. Please reach out to me. I will make sure that you have the right forms to request access to this space. I don't want to take time to go through all the policies and all that right now, but do know that you can reach out to me and I can make sure that you are connected to the right form. And again, this recording will be available to you, and information from that policy is here. And then lastly, I want to make sure that you are committing to filling any of those voids that you know exist for you. So for instance, if you know that your office chair is awful and you know that you need to have one in order to be comfortable to study, put it on your calendar. Put it on your calendar that you're going to order the chair by a certain date. The point again is just being intentional. So as we begin is how we intend to go on. B. Boundary lines. Gracious. Boundary lines must be discovered, not predetermined. This is an important component that I want to make sure we spend a little bit of time on. As graduate level students, oftentimes we come into a program with preconceived notions. We know what we want to research, and oftentimes we already know the outcomes that we want to see. So this is just a word of caution and a bit of encouragement to be willing and active in your pursuit of gaining understanding by reading and reading and reading from all the different perspectives. At this point in the process, this lit review process, your job is to absorb information, to build your foundation, and to take an inventory of what all has been said and researched already. So chances are fantastic that you're going to be reading folks that you agree with, and you're going to be reading folks that you really, really do not agree with. But again, the job at this point is to make sure that you are understanding where the foundation exists. So that you can begin to find your place in the conversation, you are going to start to determine where that gap in the research is. So after all of this absorption, that gap is going to begin to emerge. But in order to do this, you are certainly going to want to be systematic. Otherwise, it's going to be a very confusing, information-heavy process. So there are 4 different ways that I'm going to talk about today, how to start to break this information absorption down. We're going to talk about how you can get the databases to work for you. We're also going to talk about discovery tools, and we're going to talk about professional organizations. In all of this, though, primarily what I want you to wrap your head around is that you are creating for yourself something like a thesaurus. You're creating terms, and all the words are very similar to it. All these concepts that you know need to be part of your searching process. So let's look at the very first way we can do that. And I'm going to use this is just an example. We're going to talk about the concept of substance abuse. So we're going to pretend that you're writing your dissertation on something about substance abuse. And I have provided the links here. I'm going to try not to go to the links, but just refer to the screenshots instead, just for the sake of time. So the way I access this, I went to the library website and I went to databases and I chose APA Psycinfo. When I open that page, at the top of the screen in the toolbar, you'll see APA Thesaurus of Psychological Indexed Terms. And this is exactly what it sounds like. It is an index. When I open that page, I can type in the concept that I'm interested in, which in this case, again, is substance abuse, and I click Browse. When I click Browse, it's immediately going to help me understand how the field of psychology recognizes the concept of substance abuse. And within this field, primarily the phrase drug abuse is going to be the set of terms that are searchable. And it lets me know that. So if I'm looking for the concept substance abuse, I should use drug abuse instead. So when I click that, I am led to a page that provides the subject drug abuse and all the different variations of how drug abuse is connected into different subject matters for psychology. What this is doing is this is beginning to provide me words that I need to start taking note of and literally writing them down in some form so that I have my quote unquote thesaurus beginning to be developed. Secondly, we have a discovery tool. It's called Primo. Discovery tools are not databases in and of themselves. What they do is they help you to wrangle in all the different databases that the institution subscribes to and puts it into one spot. Regent University Library, we subscribe to hundreds of databases, and you potentially could go into one database at a time, or you could use a discovery tool, and that way you can enter many more databases at once, all of them. The noted exception to that would be EBSCO. That's probably a word you've heard already. EBSCO, though, does not integrate very well with Primo. So that, knowing that that's an exception to the rule, we're going to just keep mushing forward. So within Primo, again, within our discovery tool, you can search a lot of different ways, but a very specific way you can search is by way of subjects. So here's an example. I typed in the concept, substance abuse, and I changed my filter on the left-hand side to only include subjects. That yielded a ton of results, as you can see. And when I click one of the titles, it's going to allow me to see all the different subjects related to that particular title. Substance abuse being, of course, one of those. What's beneficial again of this, going about this direction, is it's going to provide you more and more and more words. So again, you're building a thesaurus or a dictionary, however you want to describe it. You're basically at this point developing a list of terms that you're going to have to be aware of as you're doing your search. Okay, I'm getting a message that I am not being heard by one student. Can anybody else hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay, thank you.
I can hear you.
Perfect, thank you. Another way that we can do this, again, using Primo, our discovery tool, is to make our search a little bit broader and use any field. Let me show you an example of that. This time, I'm not going to use a filter on the left-hand side. I'm going to leave it as it is, which is going to default to any field. So now substance abuse is what the system is going to look. It's going to look for those terms everywhere. So it's going to look in the title. It's going to look in the abstract. It's going to look in the content of the article or the book. And it's going to pull up every result that has that phrase, substance abuse. Again, reminder, the exhaustive lit review process, it is extensive. I'm hoping that some of these numbers aren't completely freaking you out, but this is what I would expect to see. Now, the great thing about this is that it is going to give you a variety of results. Again, it may not be the subject in the subject line, but it is going to give us other terms to build our thesaurus. And here again is just an example. All right. Oops. Finally, let's talk about professional organizations as a way to discover terms that we need to make sure we are including in our search process. With that same example of substance abuse, I am looking at the National Institute on Drug Abuse. And within that site, they actually provide a list of subjects. You'll find it in this left-hand column. And not only do they give you the very basic ones, but they also talk about preferred language within the field. Another example would be the National Library of Medicine. They provide something called mesh terminology. It is a searchable index. When I type in substance abuse, it gives me all the variations of how substance abuse is being spoken about in academic literature. Okay, how are we doing so far? Can I get a thumbs up or a thumbs down? Good. All right, great. All right, so again, just as a reminder, we're talking about, oh, sorry, I don't know where you got the list. Let's just, some of these questions we certainly will jump back into. I'm not ignoring you. I just want to make sure that we get through material, and we will absolutely jump back to very specific questions you have. So again, we're trying to create these boundary lines. We're trying to determine what these boundary lines are going to be. So we've looked at the different subject terms, and that there are many, many different ways of creating subject terms. I mean, one that we haven't even discussed yet is just brainstorming, sitting down and simply writing out everything that you can think of that's related to your topic. But in addition to that, these boundary lines are also made up of experts within your field. And that can be individuals who have just made ginormous strides within your field. It can also be collective organizations. And it also can be within academia. Obviously, certain schools are known for producing certain kinds of research. So knowing that is helpful. But the second thing regarding academia is that Regent University Library does create research guides that specifically are designed to connect you to these resources. And you can search by subject. And I do want to show you an example from one of my LibGuides, actually. I'm the liaison for the School of Education, and within my LibGuide that I've created, I have all of these different professional organizations hyperlinked to connect students to the professional side of their field. Okay. Again, we're talking about boundary lines. Another very important thing to keep in mind is regarding your particular topic, determine if a time frame is relevant, or if there is a specific time frame that might be relevant to your topic. Some fields of research, really, time doesn't really matter, but for a lot of other ones, that is going to be an important component in your search process. So are there key timeframes that you need to keep in mind? And then also, how active is the research environment within your field? All of this is going to be super important to make sure that you have completed an exhaustive lit review to the best of your ability. All right, recap so far. We've covered A and B of A, B, C, and D. A is to acknowledge that successful research requires a plan or intentionality and a committed investment of your time. B is boundary lines have to be discovered before gaps can be found. So 3 different things within that idea is that systematically develop a thesaurus or a dictionary, or however you want to say, of terms that you know that you will be searching. Make sure that you know who the experts are in your field by reading and reading and reading and reading and reading. You're going to be really tired of reading, but you're going to get to know who these experts are. You're going to get to know the ones that you really click with, and you're going to get to know the ones that you really don't agree with. Regardless, you need to know who those experts are. And then third, and very importantly, make sure that there is a time frame within your scope of searching if it is relevant to your topic. All right, so that's A and B. Let's jump into C. C is consider your familiarity with research tools. And I'm specifically talking about library research tools. We barely discussed some of those tools. I mentioned Primo. We talked a little bit about EBSCO. There are individual databases that might be very relevant to what you're researching. Making sure that you understand what some of the basic operators are. We talk about Boolean search operators, the idea of truncation or a wildcard. And then we have, as one of your research tools, would be your liaison librarians. And there are many of us. I particularly am over education and nursing. But that may not be your field. For instance, if you're psychology, that is Dorothy Hargett. Business is Harold Hinkle. Divinity is our Dean Gilly. And then also knowing that we do have research guides, and they are an exceptional help when you're trying to connect with information. I'm not going to spend any more time on this just because I want to make sure we have enough time for a question and answer at the end. But again, you're going to receive a recording, and all of these are hyperlinked, so you will be able to jump into them. I will say, though, that if you already realize that there's some stuff that you would like to know better, please, please, please make an appointment with me. You can reach out to me. You have my email. And I am more than happy to go through any of these tools one-on-one with you. All right. So let's jump into D, which is determine organization systems that work for you. First and foremost, I want to talk about two different books. There are many, many books that discuss dissertation writing, and you can, by extension, if you're writing a thesis, same concepts. But two that I want to point out are Peg Boyle Single. She wrote Demystifying Dissertation Writing. That is a mainstay of dissertation writing. We do have it available as an ebook. What she primarily focuses on is this idea of notation, making sure that you have a solid notation system, one that you can repeat in every single article that you review. You do not have to use her method. The point is just to create a method that works for you and that you are going to make sure that you're using every time you read something. So this is an example of the notation system that she uses for her own work. So when she finds a main argument within a paper, she puts 3 asterisks. If she finds a hypothesis, she notes it with an H and then a hashtag and then the number, whichever hypothesis she's found, theory, quotes, anything that she wants to follow up on. And then the second book that I want to make sure that you're seeing is one written by our very own faculty member, William Brown. He wrote it in conjunction with another faculty member at another institution that is called Completing Your Doctoral Dissertation and Degree. It is brand new. We have it in hard copy in the library, which you are welcome to check out. And if you're a distant student, you can still check it out. We can send it to you. So know that that does exist, and this link does take you to the catalog where it's located. Primary thing about their book that I wanted to point out was that they discuss what a good lit review looks like. And they say that it will describe the existing research objectives that already have been explored. It will describe various theoretical frameworks that are already in place. It'll describe methodologies of existing research. It will describe major findings that are already in place. And it'll describe the strengths and weaknesses of those studies. Now you'll notice that all this is past tense. Lit reviews look at what has happened. This is an inventory. But the great thing about a lit review is that it will also reveal that gap. And this is the thing that you're all looking for, the gap in the literature. And that's what your dissertation or your thesis will address. Well, it will attempt to address. Okay. This is part of the systematic approach. When you are doing these searches, it's important to make sure that you are creating a system that again works for you, but that is also repeatable. And at its very base, create an Excel document, create a table, something that's going to allow you to have the date that you did the search, the database that you looked in, the search terms you used, any filters that you might have used, and then the number of results. And then finally, you're going to want to indicate how many of those results you actually used or that you saved. You notice that there should be room for lots and lots and lots of repeating this process. Now, what to do with these saved searches, these saved results, rather. You're going to find articles that you know that you want to explore more. So saving them. There are lots of different ways of doing this as well. You can print it off and make a nice little physical stack of those things that you know you want to look at. That's fine. If that is the way that your brain operates, then by all means, go that route. If, though, you find that having some kind of digital collection spot is going to be more useful to you, there are different citation management tools. And I'm highlighting RefWorks, and the reason why I'm highlighting it is not because it's necessarily better than Zotero or Mendeley or anything else. The reason I'm highlighting it is because RefWorks offers students with the opportunity to take that that account with you after you graduate. So with a degree that is, either a master's or a doctoral level degree, chances are really good that you're going to want to continue to have access to the information that you used to write your dissertation or thesis. And so the fact that they're offering, or they're allowing you to keep that account, that's pretty awesome. So I do recommend taking advantage of it. All righty. Whatever you choose, the key is to be consistent so that you can be repetitive in that process. That again ensures that you are being thorough in your review. All right, so conclusion is that A, again, we're acknowledging that successful research requires a plan. B is that boundary lines have to be discovered before gaps can be found. C, consider your familiarity with library research tools, and please, again, make an appointment if you'd like more information. And then D, determine the organization system that's going to work for you and be consistent with it. Now, again, this is part one of a two-part series. The second part is going to be more about how to actually organize the lit review itself. So with that, I'm going to stop sharing, if I can figure out how to do that, and open it up for questions. Let's see. All right. Let's see. I have to forgive me. I am actually really new to this, to Collaborate, so I'm not real sure the best way of addressing questions. So I'm just going to jump back into the chat and see what I can find there.
We can do it via audio as well. Can you hear me?
I can. Yeah. Who am I hearing right now?
This is Sylvia Wilkes.
Hi.
Thank you so much for the presentation. Quick question. I'm in the DSL program, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I have a specific type of project that I've already had in my mind to do for some time, which is kind of like to create a leadership manual. Do I still need to do a lit review for that?
That you're creating a manual?
Yeah, for my project, I'm doing a leadership manual.
Oh, yeah. As far as having to complete a lit review and turn it in, I couldn't tell you that. That would definitely be something that you would need to discuss with your department. But completing a lit review in general is going to be important, just to make sure that you are creating something that is that hasn't been done already.
Okay, I see. Thank you kindly.
You're welcome. All right, I'm going to just kind of.
I was hoping that you would say, no, you don't need to do it.
Yeah, sorry.
Thank you.
I'm going to try to go back to the top of the chat and go in order as much as possible. Let's see. First question, can we have access to the document? Absolutely. It'll come to you as an email in the recording. I'm not sure if it comes across as a PDF as well. I'll have to look into that. Even if it doesn't come into your email, it will be on the LibGuide or the research guide that I have mentioned. So there will be access to this in one way or the other. Yeah. Thanks for your help with figuring out how to make this bigger. All right, so I'm looking at Cheryl's statement about EBSCO as the one I primarily use in theological studies. Absolutely. EBSCO is a good company, and they provide really good resources. However, they don't have everything. There is a reason why we have to have hundreds of different databases, and it's because there's a lot of information that cannot possibly fit within one database. And so making sure that you are looking as far as you possibly can to make sure that what you are studying hasn't already been studied is going to be important. So yes, you may end up having a primary database, but that certainly means that you still need to explore the other ones as well. And if I'm not answering your questions completely, let me know that. Let's see. All right. I haven't heard of Primo. Okay. So Primo is available on the library database. I'm sorry, the library homepage. It's actually a tab on that page, and it says Primo. When you click it, that opens up the search bar for Primo. If I can, I will share my screen so that you can see what it looks like. All right. So this is the library homepage. Primo is right here. And that's where you can begin your search. Okay. All right, where are you clicking to get that subject list? Anita, if you could throw another statement in the chat or unmute yourself and help me to understand what that question is referring to.
That was when you were initially creating the boundaries, and you were saying to create the thesaurus of terms. And
Yep.
you had gone into the search and you typed in substance abuse, but then you clicked something else that gave you a list of a bunch of other terms that site was kind of linking with it. I didn't know where you clicked in order to get that.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I will show you. All right, so going back to the library homepage, for that particular example, I pulled up the database that is called APA Psycinfo. And at the top of the page is where we find the thesaurus of psychological index terms. When I click that, I'm able to browse. So I typed in substance abuse and clicked browse. When I did that, it let me know that the better route would be to use the term drug abuse. So I click that, and that's when it gives me all the variations of how information about substance abuse, drug abuse has been indexed in this particular database.
Awesome. Thank you. That is very helpful. Do most databases have something like that?
Again, we have hundreds. So to answer that is, well, no, it's okay. It's a really, really good question. And I'm not going to say most, but there are lots of different ways of accessing the subject terms. And again, sometimes it's going to be better to go to the professional organizations to see if they have created a list. The reason I'm saying that is because some databases are designed to be very consumer driven. And so they're not going to look and act in an academic way. Yeah, a lot of this just has to do with like user experience, and we've kind of swayed away from the traditional looking database where it now kind of looks more like Amazon, to be quite frank. So yes, but you might have to really dig for it.
Okay.
EBSCO, though, That one's a good one. Psycinfo specifically, they are exceptional as far as being easy to manipulate and finding information. So,
No.
um,
Awesome.
and one thing to mention too is that depending on your field, this would be a great conversation for your liaison librarian because he or she would be able to connect you to those exact resources. In
Wonderful.
fact, what is your field, Anita?
Well, I used to be medicine, so I'm very familiar with EBSCO and those, but I'm
Okay.
now in the School of Divinity, so it's a whole new world for me, and I'm finding it a pretty big challenge actually when I do literature searches because it's very different.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah, you are definitely on two kind of ends of the spectrum. So, most certainly, um, Dingley, um,
Okay.
she would be your absolute best friend in this. In fact, she is getting her PhD in divinity. She already has her DMin, but she is very, very, very well versed. And that's why we have liaison librarians so that we can each be experts in a specific subject area.
What a blessing. I will be reaching out to her for sure. Thank you.
Sounds good. You're welcome. All right. Is there a site to view dissertations of Regent University doctoral students? Yes, there is. Really, really good question. I'm going to keep going back to sharing my screen because I do want to show you where that's located. Oops. When you are again on the library webpage, you can go into the databases. And this time we're going to go to ProQuest, Dissertations and Theses, Regent University. And I click that and I hit go. It's going to take me to all the dissertations and theses that have been produced by Regent University students. And you can search in there for whatever subject it is that you're covering. All right. Oh, yep, Laura answered that question. So yes, that's correct. What is your thought on OneNote as a citation tool? It's fine. It's good. Again, I don't really have a preference over any of the citation tools. It's just kind of nice whenever one offers something that another one doesn't. Sometimes it's worth noting. And again, that's why we are discussing RefWorks at this point. Just they all really do function very, very similarly. And so it sometimes just depends on which one suits your style. All right, we've already discussed how to access Primo. And again, I'm happy to meet one-on-one down the road if anybody's interested. All right, Sean, I'm a business and leadership student. Need best information on citation and bibliography. Okay, perfect. So, Sean, I would definitely recommend reaching out to Harold Hinkle. He is your liaison librarian. He does also have a research guide on the library webpage. In fact, all of the liaison librarians do, and there is one specific to business and leadership as well. So, two things. Look at the research guide, but secondly, and probably more importantly, reach out directly to Harold Hinkle, and he'd be happy to talk with you. I printed the document. Okay. Oh, good to know. Okay, there's a download button at the top of the presentation to download and print. I didn't know that. Thank you for pointing that out. As far as examples for lit reviews, I would be happy to meet with you one-on-one to do this, simply because depending on the discipline, it can look a little different. So please reach out to me if I'm your liaison librarian, or, I mean, whether I am or not, you can certainly reach out to me, and I'll be sure to show you some examples. Okay, Abby. Maybe. My MS Word is through Regent. Do I need to do an update? Maybe. I wish I had the answer for you. That would definitely be an IT question, unfortunately. I wish I could tell you, but I'm not sure. Okay, I think I have gotten through all the questions. Oh, there we go. Do we have any other questions?
Yes, I have a question. My name is Brenda Johnson, and I'm in the counseling psychology program with Regent. And my research is on how can I say it? The lived experience of grief, faith, and mental health through the lenses of terminal illness. So if there's someone that I can like maybe link to, so I can kind of find, more articles on that.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I'm happy to meet with you. Um, my primary role at Regent is research, and primarily it is with graduate level students. So I'm happy to meet with you. Again, Dorothy Hargett is the psychology liaison librarian, and she's also a doctoral student in uh, the department.
Oh, okay.
So she would be great, but I am more than happy to explore the research with you as well.
Okay.
Um,
Thank you.
yeah,
Well, I get your email address is. I think I saw it when the when they opened up the Zoom for us. Your
yes,
email address is there as well.
yes,
Okay, so
yep,
I'll reach
it's
out to
there.
you then.
Thank you. Yeah, please do.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah, you're welcome. I'm looking in the chat. Any comments on EndNote? No, same thought regarding any of the management tools. Really, you just have to find one that you like and stick with it. Okay. Any other questions?
When I heard something about to get the print.
I'm sorry, you broke up. Could you try that one more time?
I was, yeah, when I was leaving the room just now, I heard someone saying about being able to click on something to get the printed version of this presentation. Am I right?
Yeah, yeah, they said that there was a little download button.
Okay.
I'm trying to see it myself, to be honest with you. Um, let's see. I can go back up here and see where it said to do that. I clicked the download button and the PDF came right up. Top right of the presentation. So I might need to present my screen or present the document again. Let's see. Let's just see if that helps. Oh yeah. Do you see the little download button on the top right?
Yeah, and
Okay.
it's on the top right. It should be because I just downloaded it as well. Should be able to download it to a computer and print it out.
Cool.
All right. So I'll give you a few minutes to get that downloaded, and I'll just leave that up. Okay. Let me back up real quick. Oh, a quick scoop on part two. Yes, part two is going to talk more about the actual lit review, how you want to organize it. There are many different ways of organizing a lit review. For instance, chronologically. That's one popular way of organizing a lit review, or by uh, um, let's say that your idea has 4 different components. You can organize it by way of components. Um, so that's primarily what we're going to be looking at in part 2. We also will do a very, very, very quick overview of today's lesson, just to make sure that everybody's, on the same starting point. All right. All right. Sylvia, all I do is research. I hear you. Is this workshop only for grad students? It's not. However, typically undergraduate students aren't necessarily having to go into this much depth. Um, in fact, it might scare some undergraduate students off a little bit to realize just how much work is involved in getting a graduate degree. But no, I would not limit it. Um, I would just recommend it though for graduate students. That being said, we also have other workshops. They're very brief. They're 30 minutes. There are 4 in total. We've just had one. I think the next one's tomorrow. Um, it is designed for undergraduate students, but it's still valuable. And so I would recommend if you're interested and you know that you're going to have time, it'll be at the lunch, I think 12 to 12:30 tomorrow. Um, again, go through the Center for Student Happiness to register for that one.
What's that workshop again?
It is an undergraduate level one, and I can't remember the title of the next one. Give me 1 second, and I'll tell you what it is. Researching current events. That one is going to be led by Dr. Denise Cruz, and she will primarily be talking about which resources are best bets for current events. We have a few more minutes. Again, I want to encourage you to please, please, please reach out, make an appointment. On the library webpage, I'm going to show you this super quick while we have a second. On the library webpage, we have lots of ways to access us. So you can either directly email me or any of the librarians, or at the top of the screen where it says Ask a Librarian, there are all these different ways that you can connect with us. Probably the most direct way is this one that says Contact Your Librarian. And there, what's great about that, it shows you who really does what. So here's our lovely Dean Gilly. And again, she is Divinity and Theology. We have Miss Dorothy Hargett, who is over Psychology and Health Services. I will go ahead and make a note. I actually am covering nursing at this point, so we need to correct that. We have myself, which would be education, but then again, also nursing. And we have Mr. Harold Hinkle, who covers business and leadership, government, communication and the arts. And then Denise Cruz, she handles all of our undergraduate research. That being said, she really has all the subjects, to some degree. So she would be another great one to reach out to. All righty. Looks like we have one more comment. Okay. Thank you for all the nice comments. I don't want to shut us down early, so I'm just going to leave it open for a couple more minutes. And if you have any questions, throw them out there.
I think you said this was, can you hear me? This is Sherry Lane.
I can.
Okay. I know you said that, I believe you're going to cover this in part 2. I just had a quick question about, since we're doing a lot of integrating, some of my topic information is going to be like both trauma and has some, I guess, theology kind of things in it. And I just wondered, is there a database that I could search that already has like both of these things there?
You're bringing up a really good point. So many of our fields are interdisciplinary. So many of them: education, theology, nursing. I mean, a lot of the fields really do touch on lots of different disciplines. Um, Academic Search Complete is well named because it really does look in lots and lots of different disciplines.
You said Academic Search Complete?
I did, yes. Yeah, that is just one example. I think that in your case, so I would suggest starting though with Primo, because that is going to search most of the databases at the same time. Yeah, I wish I could give you a very specific answer, but in a way, I don't want to either. The problem with sticking with one or two databases is that we inadvertently begin to have very biased research. So the fact that a discovery tool exists and it allows you to look in all the different places really does help ensure that your research is well grounded, but also it's differentiated enough that you're not getting stuck in just one mindset, and not sometimes you don't even realize it. But with databases, they buy in to certain journals only.
Got it.
So yeah, so it is important, and it's good to recognize that you really can look in lots of different areas.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Yeah, you're welcome. Abby, you said I have not mentioned Summon. You are correct. We do not have Summon any longer. Primo replaced Summon. They are from the same company, but Primo is a ginormous upgrade from Summon. And I cannot over exaggerate how much of an upgrade it is. So the school and the library decided it was worth the investment to upgrade, simply for that reason. I'm looking at the next question. If one's research involves interdisciplinary matters, should the lit review reflect the differences that you mentioned in the format, or do the formatting differences really matter? Oh, interesting question. Yeah, citation. That's a good question. I don't think anybody's ever asked that before. My initial response would be that your citation style needs to match the school in which you are working. So psychology would be APA. Divinity would be Chicago Turabian. If I had to guess, I would say that you would need to stick with your school, but it's worth asking your department just to make sure.
Well, I mean, but does that go to the heart of what I was getting when I asked you earlier for the scoop on the next part of this workshop? You mentioned when I said I had asked for samples. Well, actually, let me mix my two questions. I had asked for samples of some kind of lit review, and you said that you would rather go one-on-one to show that because it would depend on what some category that you were involving in terms of your research. So that's why I was asking, do those categories hinge on what department you're in, or do the categories depend on the discipline you are researching in terms of how you actually make your lit review? Because I don't know. Again, like I said, I'm getting ahead of things because I'm jumping to part two, but I'm just trying to in my head see kind of what is the real difference? Is it determined by your department when you write it in your own lit review, or can there be different styles in your lit review if you're dealing with interdisciplinary issues as a part of your overall research? Will your own lit review involve, in other words, will your own lit review involve all of these different styles that you say could differ in the lit review itself?
So that's a very large question. And one I don't have a very specific answer to, other than the fact that you are going to probably land on a particular way that you create your lit review that makes sense for your discipline. That doesn't mean, though, that you won't be exploring other lit reviews that don't match the way that you're going to be writing yours. I don't think I'm answering your question very well.
Oh, actually, you actually helped me think of something I didn't ask, but actually goes to the heart of what I'm asking. I'm getting a little bit more of a scoop by you answering that. It sounds like we will be looking at other people's literature review documents and then borrowing from them to make our own literature review, but that we have that we have to filter from what we glean all of that into our own lit review that matches the way we're going to ultimately write our paper in terms of citation style.
Yes, that is most certainly, yes, that is definitely part of what we will be discussing. Kind of an extension of that would also be why we look at dissertations that have gone before us, you know, to get an idea of how others have successfully organized themselves. So yes, does that answer your question a little better?
Well, it's filling in blanks, the gaps with my questions. And maybe I should ask one more thing. Again, the heart of what I'm getting at is interdisciplinary. When your own product at the end is going to be interdisciplinary, meaning you're going to be looking at different quote unquote departments, if you want to put it that way, for your own, for looking at what other people have written, then, and of course, what each department is likely to have things written in their own specific disciplinary style preferred for citations. But in my own final literature review, is it ever likely that I would mix and match styles in my own literature review simply because I have been looking at different departments? And that's ultimately really what my question was in the beginning. Or not?
Possibly, yeah. I mean, I guess really probably the reason, you know, why it would be good to have a one-on-one discussion would be to really talk about what your research is going to be about, so we can make sure that what you are creating for your lit review is organized. I mean, the primary function of a lit review really is to create an inventory and to basically prove that you have explored all the inventory that exists. And how you present that as evidence that you've done it, you know, that's where the different styles come into play. And sometimes that is driven by your discipline, not necessarily driven with a whip, but more of best practices. So the fact that you are, since you know that you'll be interdisciplinary in nature, yeah, your lit review might be a little bit unique. Definitely reach out to me and let's have a more extensive conversation if you have time for that. I would love to talk more about it. All right. I see one more question. Is there a possibility to select a topic where there is very little research? Or is there a possibility of more thorough research needs to be completed? Yes. Sometimes we do pick topics that really, really need to be explored, and that can be exciting and a little scary, but absolutely that happens. And that's part of the reason why we do these higher level degrees, is because we are adding to the conversation. And sometimes the conversation really needs to be had. So yes, but that being said, a very thorough lit review will discuss all the stuff that does exist, and it will very pointedly show that there is a gap in that research. And that, again, is more of what William Brown in his book discusses, that in doing the lit review, it does reveal that gap. All right, it is 1:03. I want to be mindful of the time. Unless there are no more pressing questions, I am going to go ahead and end this and let you know that you should be receiving a recording soon. And I will also upload it into the research guide on the library website. My email address, it is mader@regent.edu. I'm going to type it in here. so you can see it. Alrighty. Well, not hearing any more questions, I'm going to say goodbye and thank you all very, very much for your time today. And I look forward to seeing you in part 2. Hope you can make it.